It was a Friday evening in Northeast Philadelphia. Seemingly ordinary, start to the weekend.
Yeah.
But that normalcy was shattered when a medical transport jet, just moments after taking off from the Northeast Philadelphia airport, crashed near Roosevelt Boulevard and Cottman Avenue.
Oh, wow.
You probably caught glimpses of this tragedy in the news.
Right.
7 lives lost, a scene of utter devastation.
Yeah. It was just awful.
Today, we're going to go beyond those headlines, peel back the layers, and really understand what happened.
I think that's important.
With us is expert's title and area of expertise. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So maybe we can start with just setting the scene a little bit.
Sure.
This wasn't a remote airfield.
No.
This was a plane coming down in a neighborhood filled with homes and businesses.
Right in the middle of everything.
Yeah, the jet, a Learjet 55, operated by Jet Rescue Air Ambulance,
Okay.
was en route to Tijuana, Mexico.
Wow.
It was carrying a young girl who was heading home after receiving treatment at Shriners Children's Hospital, accompanied by her mother. Also on board was the flight crew, the pilot, co-pilot, a doctor, and a paramedic.
It's just heartbreaking to think about, the staff at Shriners Hospital had given that young girl a send-off earlier that day.
Oh, wow.
A moment of celebration turned into an unimaginable tragedy.
Really is. So let's talk about the crash itself.
Sure.
Eyewitness accounts paint a pretty terrifying picture.
Yeah.
People going about their evening and then suddenly seeing this jet struggling to gain altitude, getting lower and lower, as some described it.
Oh, my God.
Some even reported the plane clipping a house before it went down.
I can imagine.
And then, of course, the impact.
Right. A loud roar.
Yeah.
A big plume of smoke.
Wow.
Multiple houses and cars catching fire from the explosion. It was just chaos.
It really underscores the force involved.
Yeah, and the sheer chaos of that moment.
I read that some of it was even captured on doorbell cameras and security footage,
Oh,
giving us a glimpse into those final terrifying seconds.
that's chilling.
7 lives were lost in total, all 6 on board the jet, including the young girl and her mother.
So sad.
And tragically, one person who was in a car on the ground.
Awful.
Over 20 people on the ground were also injured
Gotcha.
and had to be treated at local hospitals.
Right.
The Red Cross set up a shelter at Samuel Fells High School to provide support and temporary housing.
It's just a reminder of the ripple effects of these events. You know,
Yeah.
how they reach far beyond the immediate point of impact.
Absolutely. So, in the face of such an event, one of the first questions that naturally comes to mind is, why?
I think everyone wants to know that.
What could have caused this to happen?
It's a big question.
So that's where the investigation comes in.
Right.
And it's massive.
Absolutely.
It involves so many agencies. You have the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration,
Right. The folks responsible for setting all the rules for flying in the U.S.
and the NTSB,
The National Transportation Safety Board.
who are leading the investigation.
Okay.
But it goes beyond them.
Oh, really?
The FBI Evidence Response Team, the ATF, and even the Philadelphia Police Crime Scene Unit are all involved.
So it's a truly collaborative effort.
Yeah, trying to piece together what happened.
I see.
So what are these investigators looking at? What are some of the common factors they consider in these types of crashes?
Well, they're essentially trying to reconstruct the events leading up to the crash,
Yeah,
analyzing every possible angle.
right.
Think of it like a giant puzzle,
Okay.
where each piece of evidence, each data point,
Mm-hmm.
helps them get closer to the complete picture.
They'll be looking at everything from mechanical failure.
Right.
Was there an issue with the engine, the flight controls, any other critical system on the plane?
Yeah. Was there a mistake made by the co-pilot?
To human error.
Or even air traffic control?
Wow.
They'll also be examining the weather conditions at the time of the crash.
Okay.
Were there strong winds, low visibility icing conditions?
Right. Anything that could have made takeoff or flight control difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
I imagine the plane's maintenance history is also under scrutiny. So was the plane properly maintained? Were there any known issues that weren't addressed?
Those are important questions.
And of course, one of the key pieces of the puzzle is the black box.
Right.
Actually, 2 boxes.
Oh.
The flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder.
I see.
These incredibly durable devices capture vital information about the flight,
Yeah.
from altitude and speed to pilot conversations and any alarms that might have gone off.
It's like having a witness who saw and heard everything
Yeah.
that happened in those final moments.
So this isn't just about collecting pieces,
Yeah.
but also about understanding what they mean.
Precisely. And that's where the real expertise comes in.
So it's not just about pilots and investigators.
No, you have metallurgists analyzing the wreckage for signs of fatigue or stress.
Wow.
Aerodynamicists studying the flight path and control inputs, even psychologists trying to understand the crew's state of mind.
That's incredible.
It's a multidisciplinary effort that requires specialized knowledge from various fields.
And it's not a quick process either, is it?
No, these investigations can take months, even years to complete.
Wow.
But that thoroughness is crucial. It's about getting to the truth, understanding what went wrong, and hopefully preventing similar accidents from happening in the future.
This crash has understandably fueled concerns about aviation safety, especially given its proximity to another fatal incident.
Oh, right.
Just a year ago in 2024,
Okay.
a single-engine Beech F-33 went down in nearby Hatboro, killing all 3 people on board,
Oh, gosh.
a medical family.
So sad.
These 2 tragedies happening so close together,
Right.
both involving small planes and in the same region, raise some difficult questions.
Absolutely. And you see these concerns reflected on social media
Yeah,
with people questioning the overall safety of aviation, particularly in the U.S.
right, especially with this crash happening so close to home.
It's understandable when these kinds of events happen.
Yeah,
It's natural to feel uneasy,
right.
to wonder if there are any systemic issues at play.
And that's where the NTSB's expertise becomes even more critical.
That's true.
They have the experience and the resources to delve into these complex questions, to analyze the data, and draw informed conclusions.
Right.
Their findings will be crucial in helping us understand if there are any common threads between these 2 crashes or if they were simply isolated incidents.
Okay.
While we wait for those official findings, it's important to remember that aviation overall is still statistically very safe.
That's true. Millions of people fly every day without incident.
But it's also important to acknowledge that every accident, no matter how statistically rare, represents a failure somewhere along the line.
Yeah. And each one offers valuable lessons that can be learned to further improve safety.
That's a really insightful way to look at it.
I think so.
It's not about dismissing the risks or downplaying the tragedy, but rather recognizing that every incident, however unfortunate, can be an opportunity to learn and prevent future tragedies.
Exactly.
So while this crash is still fresh in everyone's minds and while the investigation continues, we have to hold on to that hope that something positive can come out of this,
Yeah.
that we can learn from it, make changes, and prevent future loss of life.
That's a sentiment I wholeheartedly share. And it's something we'll explore further as we continue unpacking this complex event.
Yeah.
Stay with us.
We've talked about the immediate aftermath of the crash, the scale of the investigation, and the inherent complexities of piecing together what happened. But beyond the technical aspects, there's another layer to this story
Right.
that's just as crucial to understand.
You talk about the human impact, right?
Exactly. The emotional toll this takes on the families of the victims, the witnesses, the first responders, and even the wider community.
It's huge.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical details,
Yeah.
the search for answers, but we can't forget that at the heart of this
Right.
are real people, real lives, forever changed by this tragedy.
It's a point that often gets lost in the coverage of these events.
Yeah.
We hear about the number of casualties, see the images of the wreckage,
Right.
but it's important to remember that each of those numbers represents a person with a story, a family, a network of loved ones left behind.
We can't forget that young girl returning home after treatment full of hope and anticipation, or her mother by her side. Throughout her medical journey, the medical team on board, the doctor, the paramedic, dedicated to helping others, their lives cut tragically short.
It's just awful.
And the person in the car on the ground,
Right.
caught in the wrong place at the wrong time,
Yeah.
their life intertwined with this tragedy in a way no one could have foreseen.
Yeah, it's not just those directly involved.
Right.
Think about the first responders who rushed to the scene. The firefighters battling the flames, the paramedics tending to the injured.
Oh, God.
They're the ones who have to confront the immediate aftermath, the raw reality of the devastation.
Yeah.
They carry the weight of those images, those sounds, those smells,
Wow.
long after the fires are put out and the wreckage cleared away.
It's trauma on multiple levels, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The shock, the grief, the questions that may never be fully answered.
And for those living in the neighborhood where the plane crashed, there's the added layer of fear, the disruption to their lives, the constant reminders of what happened right outside their doors.
It's a collective trauma that affects the entire community. And this is where we see the need for support, for understanding, for resources to help people cope with the emotional fallout of such an event.
Definitely. And we do see those glimmers of human connection, that outpouring of support in the face of tragedy.
Yeah.
The Red Cross shelter at Samuel Fells High School offering a safe haven for those displaced, the Shriners Hospital staff grieving the loss of their young patient, the countless messages of condolences and solidarity flooding social media.
I saw a lot of that.
Yeah, these acts of kindness, however small, remind us that even in the darkest of times, there is light, there is hope.
It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, our capacity for empathy and compassion.
Yeah, and it highlights the importance of community, of coming together to support one another in times of need.
And speaking of support, it's crucial to remember that there are resources available for those struggling to cope with the emotional impact of this event.
Yes, absolutely.
Trauma counseling, grief support groups, community outreach programs, these can provide a lifeline for those feeling overwhelmed by the emotional weight of this tragedy.
It's okay to ask for help, to reach out and connect with others who understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
There is strength in shared experience in knowing that you're not alone in your pain.
Right.
Sometimes just talking to someone who listens, who validates your feelings, can make a world of difference.
And as we delve deeper into this conversation, we need to acknowledge the wider context.
Hmm.
This crash occurring just 2 days after another fatal air disaster in the U.S., the one we mentioned earlier in Hatboro,
Right?
has understandably amplified anxieties around aviation safety.
Yeah.
People are asking if there's a pattern here.
Yeah. Are there underlying issues that need to be addressed?
It's a valid concern.
It is, while statistically, aviation remains a very safe mode of transportation, these back-to-back incidents, both involving small planes and within such close proximity, do raise questions
Yeah.
about whether there are any specific vulnerabilities within this sector of aviation.
Yeah.
Some experts have pointed out that medical transport flights like the one involved in this crash often operate under tight schedules and challenging conditions,
Okay.
which could potentially increase the risk factors.
That's a perspective I hadn't considered. So we have the immediate concerns about the specific crash and then these broader questions about the safety of medical transport flights in particular.
Exactly. And that's where the NTSB's investigation becomes even more crucial.
Right.
Their findings could potentially reveal systemic issues that need to be addressed not just for medical transport flights, but for general aviation as a whole.
So while we await the outcome of that investigation, how should we as individuals approach this issue of aviation safety? Should we be overly concerned? Should we avoid flying altogether?
Well, I wouldn't advise avoiding flying based solely on these recent incidents.
Okay.
As we've established, statistically, flying is still incredibly safe.
Right.
But it's always prudent to be informed, to understand the risks involved, and to make conscious choices.
What do you mean by conscious choices?
Well, for example, if you're particularly anxious about flying, you might choose an airline with a strong safety record, or opt for a direct flight to minimize the number of takeoffs and landings.
Oh, okay.
You can also research the type of aircraft you'll be flying on, familiarize yourself with the safety features, and even check the weather conditions at your departure and arrival cities.
So knowledge is power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The more informed you are, the more empowered you feel to make decisions that align with your comfort level.
That's a really helpful way to frame it. It's not about living in fear, but about being proactive, about understanding the factors involved and making choices that minimize risk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And while we can't control every aspect of flying, we can control how we prepare, how we inform ourselves, and how we manage our anxieties.
So we've discussed the immediate impact of the crash, the emotional toll, the ongoing investigation, and the broader anxiety surrounding aviation safety. But amidst all of this, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway? What's the one thing you hope listeners will remember from this conversation?
For me, it's the human element.
Hmm.
It's about remembering that behind the headlines, behind the statistics,
Yeah.
there are real people whose lives have been irrevocably changed by this tragedy.
Right.
Their grief, their loss, their resilience. These are the stories that deserve our attention, our empathy, and our support.
That's a powerful reminder, and I think it nicely sets the stage for the next part of our discussion. So we've spent a good amount of time dissecting this plane crash in Philadelphia, from the technical aspects to the investigative process, and of course, the profound human impact. But as we've been going through all this, what's been resonating most with you?
You know, it's interesting. We often talk about aviation safety in terms of statistics, regulations, and technology.
Yeah.
But this deep dive has really highlighted the importance of the human factor. It's not just about preventing accidents.
Right.
It's about understanding the ripple effects, the way these events touch the lives of so many people.
I think that's really important. We can't lose sight of the individuals, the families, the communities impacted by these tragedies.
Exactly. And I think it goes beyond empathy.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that safety isn't just a technical issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's a human issue.
Right.
The decisions made by pilots, mechanics, air traffic controllers,
Yeah.
These all have human elements that can't be ignored.
So, how do we incorporate that human element into the equation? How do we ensure that aviation safety measures take into account not just the technical aspects, but also the human factors?
Well, for one, we need to foster a culture of open communication and transparency within the aviation industry.
Okay.
Pilots need to feel comfortable reporting errors or concerns without fear of reprisal. Mechanics need to be empowered to flag potential maintenance issues.
Right.
And we need to invest in training programs that not only equip aviation professionals with the necessary technical skills,
Hmm.
but also cultivate strong decision-making, communication, and stress management skills.
So, it sounds like we're talking about a shift in mindset, not just in technology or regulations.
Absolutely. And it's a shift that needs to happen at all levels, from the individuals on the front lines to the organizations responsible for setting safety standards.
And this Philadelphia crash, as tragic as it is, can perhaps serve as a catalyst for that kind of shift. A reminder that safety is not just about checklists and procedures, it's about people.
I agree. Every accident, no matter how statistically rare, offers an opportunity to learn, to adapt, and to improve. And this particular incident, with its unique circumstances and the questions it raises about medical transport flights, has the potential to lead to meaningful changes
Right.
that can make flying safer for everyone.
So, as we conclude this deep dive, I think we've uncovered a lot more than just the details of a single plane crash. We've delved into the complexities of aviation safety, the human stories behind the statistics, and the need for a more holistic approach to preventing future tragedies.
It's been a thought-provoking journey. And while there are still many unanswered questions and the investigation continues, I hope this conversation has given you, the listener, a deeper understanding of this event and its wider implications.
And perhaps even more importantly, it sparked a sense of curiosity, a desire to learn more, to engage in those critical conversations about how we can collectively strive to make aviation safer for everyone, after all. Isn't that the essence of a deep dive, to go beyond the surface, to explore the nuances, and to emerge with a richer, more informed perspective?
Well said, and perhaps in the face of tragedy, that pursuit of knowledge, that commitment to continuous improvement, is the most meaningful tribute we can offer to those whose lives were lost.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll continue to follow this story as it develops and keep you updated on any significant findings or developments. Until then, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving for a world where tragedies like this become less frequent, less likely.